Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Sharnaram Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samavita Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 9, Dhruva Maharaj Returns Home, text 18 and 19. Okay, please repeat. Maitreya Uvacha Athabhishtuta evam vai Satsankalpena dhimata Satsankalpena dhimata Vrityanurakto Bhagavan Vrityanurakto Bhagavan Pratinandyedam abravit Pratinandyedam abravit Maitreya Uvacha Athabhishtuta evam vai Satsankalpena dhimata Vrityanurakto Bhagavan Pratinandyedam abravit Maitreya Uvacha Athabhishtuta evam vai Satsankalpena dhimata Vrityanurakto Bhagavan Pratinandyedam abravit. Pratinandyedam abravit. Mataji. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Atha, then, Abhishtutaha, being worshipped, Evam, thus, Vai, certainly, Satsankalpena, by Dhruva Maharaj, who had only good desires in his heart. Dhimata, because he was very intelligent. Mritya Anuraktaha, very favorably disposed towards devotees. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pratinandya, having congratulated him. Idam, this, Abravit, said. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, when Dhruva Maharaj, who had good intentions in his heart, finished his prayer, the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees and servants, congratulated him, speaking as follows. Text 19. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Veda Vedaham te vyavasitam Riddhi Rajanya Balaka Tat Prayachami Bhadram te Durapam api suvrata. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Dhruva, son of the king, you have executed pious vows, and I also know the desire within your heart. Although your desire is very ambitious and very difficult to fulfill, I shall favor you with its fulfillment. All good fortune unto you. Purport. The Lord is so merciful to his devotee that he immediately said to Dhruva Maharaj, Let there be all good fortune for you. The fact is that Dhruva Maharaj was very much afraid in his mind, for he had aspired after material benefit in discharging his devotional service, and this was hampering him from reaching the stage of love of God. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.44 it is said, Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam, those who are addicted to material pleasure cannot be attracted to devotional service. It was true that at heart Dhruva Maharaj wanted a kingdom that would be far better than Brahmaloka. This was a natural desire for a Kshatriya. He was also only 5 years old, and in his childish way he desired to have a kingdom far greater than his fathers, grandfathers, or great-grandfathers. His father, Uttanapad, was the son of Manu, and Manu was the son of Lord Brahma. Dhruva wanted to excel all these great family members. The Lord knew Dhruva Maharaj's childish ambition, but how is it possible to offer Dhruva a position more exalted than Lord Brahma's? The Lord assured Dhruva Maharaj that Dhruva would not be bereft of the Lord's love. He encouraged Dhruva not to be worried that he childishly had material desires, and at the same time had the pure aspiration to be a great devotee. Generally, the Lord does not award a pure devotee material opulence, even though he may desire it. But Dhruva Maharaj's case was different. The Lord knew that he was such a great devotee that in spite of having material opulence, he would never be deviated from love of God. This example illustrates that a highly qualified devotee can have the facility of material enjoyment and at the same time execute love of God. This, however, was a special case for Dhruva Maharaj. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulmintam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadandikam Vande Ham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapti Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So different stories in Srimad Bhagavatam, they teach us different lessons so that we can better appreciate the Krishna Lila, which is the summum bonum of Srimad Bhagavatam, and also we can better appreciate the whole text as well. So for example, if you look at Maharaj Ambarisha's pastime, we can learn how we can engage all of our senses in Krishna's service. Or if you look at Gajendra's pastime, there Srila Prabhupada says in his purports that we can learn from Gajendra's pastime that is beneficial for us to practice Krishna consciousness from our strength, from our position of strength. Gajendra was a land animal and he was trying to fight the crocodile in the water. It was very difficult for him. So there Srila Prabhupada makes the point that situate yourself, in your proper varna, in your proper ashram, in your proper occupation, and then it's easier to practice Krishna consciousness. Or if you take Prithu Maharaj, we can learn how to take care of Praja, how to take care of Krishna's part and parcels. There in 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says that one of the effects of acquiring transcendental knowledge is that one sees all living entities as being part and parcel to Krishna, as being connected to Krishna. Krishna says in the Gita. So there we can see that because every living entity belongs to Krishna, then if we're a chief executive, if we're a king, if we're a prime minister, then we should take very nice care of all living entities in our kingdom. And here in Dhruva Maharaj's pastime, we're learning a very important lesson. It's one of the basics of Krishna consciousness. And that is that when we practice bhakti, it should be devoid of all material desire. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma anavritam anukulyena krishnanushalam bhaktiruttama. Right? So this is the verse that we learn in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, which characterizes pure devotional service. And there the first line says, Anya bilashita shunyam. Pure bhakti is characterized as having absolutely no material desire and should be devoid. So that's the positive thing. And the negative thing is it should be devoid of tendencies for fruitive gain, mental speculation. And Shriram Raj mentions in his book, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, he mentions that Jnana Karma Anavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilam, Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karma Adi. So the word Adi is there. So Adi refers to mystic yoga as well. So the desire for mystic perfections in this world. And then on the other hand, bhakti should be Krishna Anushilanam. So it should be for Krishna, it should be favorably cultivated, and it should be anukul. It should be anything we do in Krishna consciousness should be favorable. It should be exclusively, so it should be favorable for Krishna. It should be exclusively done for Krishna, and it should be actively cultivated. So here we see in Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes, he's just performed tapasya. He managed to get the darshan of Lord Vishnu in less than 6 months by performing intense tapasya. And Lord Vishnu has come, and now he's going to offer prayers to Lord Vishnu. Well, he's already offered prayers actually. Lord Vishnu, Prishnagarbha, touched Dhruva Maharaj on his head with his conch shell and lighted him so that he could offer prayers. He was just a small boy. He's offered prayers. And Lord Vishnu, you'll see in the next few verses, will bless Dhruva Maharaj with the fulfillment of his desires. He will bless him mainly with 3 things. He will bless him that he does get, number 1, a kingdom far greater in opulence than his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather. That's one thing. Now, if you have material opulence, how can you enjoy the material opulence if your body is deteriorating with birth, death, disease, and old age? Right? You can become a great king, a great emperor, but if you're diseased, you can't enjoy that kingdom. So Lord Vishnu will bless Dhruva Maharaj with the second boon, that even though you will rule on this planet Earth for 30,000 years, and after that you'll go to the pole star, which is the Vaikuntha planet within this material world, where Kshirodakashayi Vishnu lives. Vishnu himself lives there. While you are ruling as a king for 30,000 years, I bless you so that all your senses remain very strong and very powerful. So we see as we age, our sensual strength deteriorates. Our vision deteriorates, our sense of smell deteriorates, taste deteriorates. And because our senses is the way that we interact with this material world, and it's the way that we enjoy sense objects, our quality of sense gratification deteriorates as we age. So therefore Lord Vishnu blesses him with very powerful senses for 30,000 years. And also, because initially he set out going to the forest to get revenge on his stepmother, Vishnu says that in the future, what will happen is your brother Uttama will go to the forest, he'll get stuck in a forest fire. He'll be surrounded by forest fire. He'll lose his life. His mother, Suruchi, will run after him, and she'll also perish there. It was very scary, actually. So that's why Srila Prabhupada is saying that the fact is that Dhruva Maharaj was actually very much afraid in his mind, for he had aspired after material benefits in discharging devotional service. So imagine Krishna is saying that your stepmother, because you had initially worshipped me for these material things and for revenge, that person that you were seeking revenge from, I bless you that that person will leave their body. You feel very scared. Because at the same time, Dhruva Maharaj is not practicing pure bhakti. His bhakti was tinged, at least initially it was tinged with karma. It was tinged with fruitive gain. But because he was blessed by Narada Muni, because he was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that purified him gradually. And because it purified him, even though he got these 3 benedictions, he starts to lament. You see in some verses, he starts to lament. Kacham vichinvan api divyaratnam. That I have gained the greatest jewel, but I was running after broken pieces of glass. This is the state of Dhruva Maharaj. There's a nice story I came across of one farmer. And this story is a simple story, but it characterizes our situation in this material world, seeking material happiness. And it's very relative. So there was a farmer, a very old farmer. He was very detached, quite wise. So one day, he had many animals, but he had a horse, and a very prized horse. He used to take that horse and go to different places, to the market or wherever a farmer goes. So one day, that horse ran away. And do you think he was depressed? He wasn't. He was wise. So what happened? His neighbors, they all came because they heard that he had lost his cherished horse. And they said to him, "Oh no, you have lost your horse. It's a very bad situation, isn't it? Very unfortunate situation." And his reply was, "Maybe." He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, he said maybe. The next day, the next morning, that horse of his, which was lost, it came back to his house, and it brought along with him 7 or 8 other horses. So in a herd, they came back. And then the neighbors came back and they said that, "Hey, it's good news. Your horse, which was lost, now you got more horses. It came back with more horses. You have more than what you had initially had. So that's good news." And then, what did he say? Maybe. Have you heard this story? Chidari Bruce nodding. So then what happened? Now he has 7 horses. And they're wild. 6 of them are wild. So he needs someone to tame them. Otherwise they're useless. So then he asks his son, you go and tame these horses. So his son is trying to, ride them and trying to tame them and stuff. And he falls off the horse and he breaks his hand. And then the neighbors come back again. They say, oh no, your son has broken his hand. It's bad news, isn't it? And he says, maybe. And there was a war going on. So the next day, the conscription officers came to his house and he said, we want to take your son. And then they realized the son has a broken hand, so he's useless. He can't fight in the war. And he said, okay, we can't take your son. Let him stay with you. And the neighbors came back and they say, hey, it's good news. Your son wasn't sent to the war to die. So he's staying with you. He can take care of you. And the farmer said, maybe. So like that, our material perception of happiness continues like that. We can learn that from this, that material happiness is relative. Right? What we think is happiness is not always happiness, right? Like the neighbors, they thought that when the horse ran away, that was bad news. But then just after a period of time, it was actually good news. So material happiness is relative. And material happiness is short-lived. Whenever he got that happiness, he got more horses, or his son was not sent to the war, it's just a matter of time before something else happens. So it's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, Dukkha yonaya evate adiyantavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. So there Krishna mentions that those who are wise, Buddhas, those who are wise, they don't engage their senses in the interaction of the objects of the senses. They don't do that. Because they know that material happiness, which is obtained, material enjoyment, which is obtained with the contact of your senses with the sense objects, anta vanta, adi anta vanta. It has a beginning, it has an end. So they look for happiness in a more sustained, increasing, ever increasing, exponentially increasing source, which is Krishna consciousness. I remember Ganesham Prabhu was saying once he asked a question to Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj about enthusiasm. We know that in Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami, what does he say about enthusiasm? Who knows that verse? Yeah? Utsaha nishtayat dharyat tat tat karma pravartanat sanga tyagat satovrate sadvir bhaktir prasiddhiti. So, in the 6 different aspects of devotional service which positively help one, the first one Rupa Goswami says is utsaha, enthusiasm. Now, Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj said in regards to enthusiasm that we don't have unlimited enthusiasm. He says enthusiasm is limited. Your enthusiasm is limited. And your enthusiasm can either be for Krishna or it can either be for sense gratification, for Maya. So you cannot show, for example, 80% enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness and then also 80% enthusiasm in sense gratification. That's not possible. If you are showing 80% enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness, that means that you're only showing 20% enthusiasm in Maya. Or if you're showing 80%, 90% enthusiasm in sense gratification, you cannot show more than 10% enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness. It doesn't work like that. So it's like, it's one or the other. It's not like both at the same time. Srila Prabhupada says that sense gratification and Krishna consciousness go ill together. So our enthusiasm is limited. So Dhruva Maharaj was enthusiastic about his practice of bhakti because he was reducing his sense gratification month by month. And we can see a similar example in Raghunath Das Goswami as well, in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Maybe some devotees have spoken about this. Very similar. That when he got the mercy of Lord Nityananda, he got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was at Jagannath Puri, a very close association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was at Jagannath Puri, and initially he was standing at the doors of the temple, and whoever would pass by, he would beg food from them. And then after a while he thought that I'm just looking at people and I'm just thinking about food. So let me stop begging food from people, and let me just go to the booth. They had some booths where once a day they would distribute food to the sadhus. So once a day he would go and get food from the booths. Then he thought after some time, that's also too much. So then, what did he do? He would go to the back of the temple where they would throw away the rotten prasad, and he would take the burnt pieces of grains of rice, which even the cows rejected, and he would take that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I mean, we would think that it's quite extreme, but then it depends on your adhikar, it depends on your qualification. That was like something okay for Raghunath Das Goswami. He was already very renounced. In fact, he's the Acharya of renunciation, Raghunath Das Goswami. It's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that his renunciation and his daily sadhana was like lines etched on stone. We can see how renounced he was. We can see how much sense gratification he had reduced. That he would chant, I mean, all Goswamis would chant like minimum 64 rounds a day, more. He would offer 1,000 obeisances to Krishna daily. He would offer 2,000 obeisances to the Vaishnavas daily. You just imagine 2,000 times getting down, paying obeisances to one Vaishnava, and 1,000 for Krishna every single day. And then, because he had spent so much time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, when he came to Vrindavan, that's another thing he did. He helped Jiva Goswami in establishing Radhakund as well, as we see it today. So he would lecture daily for a minimum of 3 hours on the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was the sadhana, this was the bhajan, this was the renunciation of Raghunath Das Goswami. And it says, Mahaprabhu era bhakta ganera vairagya pradhan yaha dekhi pritihaya gaura bhagavan. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very pleased when he sees that his devotees are reducing sense gratification, are showing renunciation. So it's incumbent upon us as devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to reduce our sense gratification. Automatically what will happen, our enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness will increase. You know, there's a place called Hanoi. Anyone know what that is, Hanoi? I think it's the capital of Vietnam. It's a city in Vietnam. So back in the early 1900s, there was a big plague in Vietnam. A big plague, which was spread by vermin, which was spread by mice and rats. So the government wanted to find some way to stop this plague. How to kill the rats. So what they did is they gave a monetary reward. That if you can kill a certain amount of rats, we'll give you money. So initially what they did is they were thinking, how can we get the citizens, to come forward and kill these rats? And they thought that, look, if they killed the whole rat, there'll just be piles of rats in the street. And that itself will cause more disease. So then after some time they thought what to do, and they came up with this idea that instead of asking these people the citizens who want to kill these rats and get a monetary reward, instead of killing the whole rat, they should just show us the tail of the rat. Kill the rat, dispose of it, get rid of it, burn it, whatever, and just show us the tail. And if you show us 100 tails, then you get a certain amount of money. If you show us 1,000 tails, you get a certain amount of money. In fact, I read in one article that a record number of more than 21,000 rats they had killed. It's like apparently a record because of this plague. It's actually there in history. It's called the Hanoi rat massacre. Just like Janamai Jaya Maharaj was killing all these snakes. So there in Vietnam at that point in time, they were killing all these rats as they were spreading this plague. So what happened is the people who were killing the rats, they realized that after I cut the tail of the rat doesn't die, actually. So you know what they did? They would cut the tail, keep the tail. They would let the rat go, and that rat would breed, produce more rats, and they would keep cutting the tails and take many tails, and the rats would keep breeding. So you may think, how is it related? So it's related because we've taken up the path of Krishna consciousness. So we might as well kill the whole rat of material sense gratification. Because if we just kill the tail, then the desire still remains in the heart. And it's still going to continue to breed. It's still going to continue to increase. If you're practicing Krishna consciousness 95%, that 5% of material desire that you're keeping in your heart, it has the potential to explode again and take over your life. Again, you can fall back into Maya. You know that story Radhanath Maharaj gives about a mansion, and it's all locked up at nighttime. The people inside the mansion, they lock it up completely, bolt all the doors, bolt all the windows, seal everything. And it's nighttime. Why are they doing that? Because they don't want the burglars and thieves to enter the mansion, right? So what happens is that they can't enter, the burglars can't enter, but in the basement, in that mansion, he says that there's a little crack in the window. And even though the burglars can't enter through that crack, Maya can enter through that crack. Srila Prabhupada gives the other story of the camel and the sheik. You've heard that story of the camel and the sheik? That the sheik was staying in the tent, and then a camel came by, and it was a bit too hot for the camel. The camel wanted a bit of shade, so the camel puts one leg into the tent. And the sheik said, okay, there's still a bit of room here. I'll allow you to put one leg there. Then the camel puts two legs. He said, okay, there's still a bit of room. Then he puts three, then he puts four. And all of a sudden he finds that the whole camel is in the tent. And then he doesn't have any room to stay in the tent, so he has to go outside. Like that. So, we should practice Kevala Bhakti. We should practice Shuddha Bhakti. Only for Krishna. That means we should aim to get rid of all of our material desires. And then we can practice Krishna consciousness with Dhrida Vrata. Yesham tvanta gatam papam jananam punya karmana te dvanda moha nirmukta bhanjante mam Dhrida Vrata. Krishna says, you can practice Dhrida Vrata, you can practice devotional service to me, bhakti to me, in a very fixed and determined way, if you have been cleared of your reactions to your previous punya and your pap. Otherwise, they'll keep disturbing your mind. Have you noticed that your mind is always thinking of something? Desires keep coming into your mind. And what does Krishna say in the Gita? Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapa pravishante yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishante sarvesa shantim apnoti na kamakami. Just like you have a still lake, rivers are flowing into the lake, but the lake is still still. So in the same way, Krishna says we should tolerate these material desires. Now, why are the material desires there in the first place? Why is our mind going crazy? Why is our mind thinking of our previous sense gratification? It's because it is a reaction, it is a delayed reaction to our previous material activities. For example, I'll give a practical example for all the devotees. You would notice that in recent times, the very merciful pujaris have been putting the Mangalarti sweets in the restaurant. Right? After the morning program, in the morning, after Mangalarti, the pujaris come and they bring the whole tray of Mangalarti sweets, very tasty, very sweet, and they put that tray in the restaurant. And then you're chanting japa in the temple room, right? And then you feel sleepy. You think, let me go into the restaurant and chant my japa, let me pace back and forth. And so you go out there, open a window, and keep pacing, and then your eyes catch vision of that tray, right? And then initially you're just seeing the tray and you're just still going back and forth, but then your mind is saying, let me see what's in that tray. Has anyone taken some of the burfis, or what's there, So then you peek over, and then for the first day that's all you do, right? But then you develop that desire, because you've done it once. Then the next day you're chanting japa, then what happens? Is your mind peaceful? No, that same desire will come back into your mind. Let me go and check, see what's there in that Mahaprasad tray. So you go, and then this time, yesterday it was like the sweet rice was only a few grains left, and Someone had taken the rasgullas and the sandeshas, but today it's a full tray. And the lights are off, it's dark, and no one is watching. And then what does your mind say? Just try a little bit. Just try a burfi. Only a burfi, just one burfi. So you try a burfi. And you eat it, and you feel satisfied. You quickly run, you go wash your hands, and step back into the temple room, sit down very nicely, chant japa. No one notices anything, right? Now next day what happens? You've tasted the burfi. What does your mind say the next day? No, it says, I've already tasted the burfi. Yeah, let me now try the sandesh. What does that taste like? Right? Or the rasgulla. Just to try it, just to see how sweet it is, just to see what Krishna is tasting. So this is how it goes. So it is best to not to give in to material desires in the first place. Because once you do it, you start the momentum. You start the momentum and it keeps pushing and pushing. And the more you give in to fulfilling your material desires, the harder it is to put the brake, the harder it is to stop. So Dhruva Maharaj, he put the brakes. In fact, each month he was pressing the brake harder and harder and harder and harder. He never touched the accelerator. So that is the ideal way to practice bhakti. Vishaya charya se rase majya. Acharya say, completely give up Vishaya, completely give up attraction to sense objects, and se rase majya. So that's what we were talking about, enthusiasm, right? To the degree you give up sense gratification, to that degree you'll find inspiration and enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness. So there are acharyas, perhaps Narottam Das Thakur, he's saying in this bhajan, Vishayacharya, you give up sense gratification, then correspondingly, se rase majya. To that degree, you'll be able to taste happiness in Krishna consciousness. And one more thing, which Srila Prabhupada here is discussing in the purport, and also in the translation. Here it said, my dear Dhruva, son of the king, you have executed pious vows, and I also know the desire within your heart. This thing about desire. Although your desire is very ambitious, and very difficult to fulfill, I shall favor you with its fulfillment. All good fortune to you. So the other day, one devotee asked the question. We were discussing Krishna book, and the devotee comes. So some devotees were saying it comes from the mind, it comes from the intelligence. So desire originally comes from the soul. Desire is originally manifesting from the soul. When that desire passes through the filter of the false ego, it turns to material desire. It turns to desires for sense gratification. But if our false ego is real ego, that means we are firmly fixed in the Sambandha Gyan, that I'm Krishna's servant, I belong to Krishna, and I am simply existing to please Krishna. Then that original desire passes through into this mature world, and we act in devotional service. So in the mature world, who is permitting the fulfillment of our desires? Yeah, specifically which aspect of Krishna? We spoke about this recently. Paramatma. And what is the two functions of the Paramatma according to Bhagavad Gita? You got one of them right? Yeah, witness and permitter. Upadrishta and Anumanta. Upadrishta means he witnesses, he sees all the activities. And Anumanta means he ratifies, means he gives permission. He gives sanction. Okay, you can do it. That is how the Paramatma fulfills desires. So, three things are there, three factors are there. Of course, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we learned that there's 5 factors of action, but we'll simplify it a little bit. There's 3 factors for the fulfillment of any desire. First is the jiva. The jiva first desires something. Then Krishna, as the Paramatma, sanctions the desire. And then who facilitates the fulfillment of that desire? The material energy, Maya. So you have the jiva, you have Paramatma, and then you have Maya. So if I desire a burfi in the restaurant, I will desire first in my heart, then Krishna will sanction that desire. Say, okay, if you want to fulfill your desire taking a burfi, then go and take a burfi, that's fine. And then the external energy will arrange the situation so that no one will be around, right? So that anything that you want will be there. And then you go out and fulfill your desire. So 3 things have to be there. And our Acharya has given an example of the woodcutter in this example, in this regard. So you have the woodcutter, you have the hand, and you have the axe. So the woodcutter cuts the wood, right? So who ultimately is responsible for cutting the wood? The woodcutter. So the woodcutter is actually Krishna. Because without Krishna, we can't fulfill our desires. The jiva cannot fulfill his desires without Krishna. So the woodcutter is the Paramatma. The hand of the woodcutter is the jiva. Because the jiva is a part and parcel of Krishna. So the hand is a part of the body. It makes up the body. Understand? And then the axe is, the axe is material energy. So the hand is actually desiring to, the hand is thinking, okay, I'll cut. The woodcutter, the full body with the intelligence, enables the hand to cut. And the actual instrument of cutting, which is separate, the axe is separate from the hand and the woodcutter, right? Because the hand is part of the body, and the woodcutter is the whole body. So qualitatively, the axe is different to the body, right? The body it's alive, whereas the axe is dead matter. So in the same way, Maya is a completely different energy to the spiritual energy, to Paramatma and to the jiva. So the axe helps to fulfill the desire of the woodcutter by being the instrument to cut the wood. So these 3 things fulfill. It reminds me of one story actually about how Krishna arranges through the help of his energy to fulfill someone's desire. I'll finish with this story. This is a story one Dude told me a long time back when I first came to Krishna consciousness. So what happened is there was a party going on at night time, and there was one Mataji, and she just recently came into Krishna consciousness. So it was a party amongst some karmis or something, some old friends or something like that. So she didn't want to go, but she went anyway. She went to the party. She was a new devotee. She went, and the party finished late at night, and it was time for her to go home. So it was very late at night. Now, for her to go home, she had to walk through an alleyway, a very dark alleyway, and it was not a very good neighborhood actually. It was a very dangerous neighborhood. So as she left the house late at night, where the party was, she left the house and she was walking through that alleyway. She was constantly in her mind, or constantly she was chanting the name of Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. She was chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And she could see there was a man coming the opposite way. And she was a bit afraid, and she really intensified the chanting. And she chanted, and luckily that man who she thought would, harm her, he just passed. He didn't do anything. Now the next morning she woke up and she found out that there was news. There was news that another person had actually been attacked in that same alleyway that she was walking down. There was another lady that had been attacked actually. And they came and interviewed that guy. They caught that guy, and they came and interviewed him. And they asked him, so who was there? You were walking down, you attacked this particular person, and then was there anyone else there? And he said, yeah, actually before I attacked that particular person, there was another lady that was walking past. And they asked him, so why didn't you do anything to her? And he said, but she was surrounded by 4 men. So even though that devotee lady, she was by herself, she was chanting, but then Krishna's arranged his protection in such a way that that guy, that attacker, he didn't see her by herself, but he saw that she was actually accompanied by 4 other men. So then he just walked past her, and then someone else was attacked like that. So a very interesting example. I was told that story. It increases your faith in Krishna consciousness. You don't know how Krishna is going to protect you. It's just like Prahlad Maharaj. All of a sudden, Nrsimhadev just comes out of the pillar. So Krishna's protection, his poshnam, can be done in any way like that. So desire is very important. So Dhruva Maharaj intensified his desire. But one point is that, see, it says we should have intense desire in Krishna consciousness, right? And we should give up sense gratification. And then we can have Dhrida Vrata. Then we can have firm determination in Krishna consciousness. Now, externally it seems that Dhruva Maharaj was extremely determined. And he was determined. Initially he was, for the first 5 months, he was determined. But because there was a tinge for material gain in his performance of bhakti, his bhakti was interrupted. After the 5 months, after Vishnu comes, blesses him, after he glorifies Lord Vishnu, his bhakti was interrupted. It was not unmotivated and uninterrupted. His bhakti was interrupted. Why was it interrupted? As you'll see later on in this chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam, he starts to lament. And we discussed that before. He starts to lament. So that lamentation interrupted his bhakti. Of course, after that he learned from it and then he became a pure devotee. But that is a lesson for us, that our performance of devotion, so we should pray to Krishna, we should pray to Lord Nrsimhadev. Ganesham was telling me recently that there's 2 forms of Krishna that give you stability in Krishna consciousness. You can pray to 2 forms of Krishna to give you rock solid determination and stability in Krishna consciousness. One is Giriraj. You can pray to Giriraj for stability in Krishna consciousness. And the other one, can anyone guess who it is? No, actually. No. Kurmadev. You can actually pray to Lord Kurma. So Kurma, as you can see in that Leela, Samudra Manthan Leela, he actually used his back and he provided stability for the demigods and the demons to churn the milk ocean. So Kurmadev can also bestow one with rock solid stability in Krishna consciousness. So we can pray to them for Kevala Bhakti. I'll finish here. Any questions or comments? This is Rudra Geet, right? So Shiva, what Lord Shiva does is he teaches the Prachetas Rudra Geet, and in the first quarter of the Rudra Geet, there he's glorifying the Chaturvyuha. So one of the prayers is about Aniruddha. It's about 50 prayers, Rudra Geet. There's many different Gitas in Srimad Bhagavatam. And by reading and reciting each one of those Gitas, there's a different falastuti. You get different things. Right, like this, specifically this Rudra Geet, it's mentioning that if you daily recite Rudra Geet, you will obtain that which is unobtainable. You'll obtain that which you usually can't get, and that is pure devotional service. Why? Because Rudra, he is Vaishnavanam Yathasham, he is very dear to Krishna. So by reciting the prayer that he taught the Prajetas, then it's mentioned as the falastuti that one will receive that which is unobtainable to receive. One will receive Krishna. One will actually achieve Krishna. One will actually achieve pure devotional service to him. And the Prachetas for 10,000 years, they were underwater and they will continuously recite. What was their sadhana? Just like Dhruva Maharaj here is reciting the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They were for 10,000 years continuously reciting Rudra Geet. Those 50 or 60 verses, continuously. They were meditating and reciting Rudra Geet. So much so that, they come out of the water and Lord Vishnu comes, flying there in the picture of Bhagavatam. He's actually standing on Garuda, and he comes and he says, Varam vinidram bhadram vo yuyam me nripanandana sohardena pritak dharmas tushtoham sohardena va. He says, I bless you, Prachetas. I'm very pleased with you because you're practicing pure devotional service, Sohardena, together. So he appreciated that they were brothers, 10 brothers, they were practicing bhakti together. Specifically, he says. And then he says, because you're practicing bhakti together in harmony, assisting each other, I'm very pleased with you, therefore ask me for any benediction. So that's another point. That bhakti is not a type of yoga that you go to the forest. Of course, Dhruva Maharaj's performance of bhakti is tinged with yoga, it's tinged with fruitive desire, initially at least. But the bhakti that we are practicing, the bhakti that Srila Prabhupada has taught us, has to be performed in the association of devotees. There is no other way to get success in bhakti. It means that ordinarily for anyone in this mature world, by their own endeavor, by their own strength, it's very difficult to obtain something, a post which is higher than Lord Brahma. Right? Like, you can obtain the position of a king, you can obtain the position of a prime minister, you can obtain the position of a president. You can even obtain the position of Brahma by perfectly following Varnashram, Daivi Varnashram, for 100 consecutive births. You can obtain the position of Lord Brahma by your own strength. But how do you obtain a position higher than Lord Brahma? How do you obtain rulership of a planet higher than Satyaloka within this mature world? How is it possible? It's not possible because Brahma is the highest. Satyaloka is the highest planet. So to obtain a planet or a position higher than Satyaloka is not possible in this mature world. So only Krishna can award such a thing. That's why it's saying it's ordinarily it's difficult to fulfill by your own endeavor, but Krishna can do it. Is my understanding. Yes, it's also possible by your capacity or your adhikar in Krishna consciousness. Just like if we had the position and opulence of Ambarish Maharaj, would we do Savaimana Krishna Padaravindya Vacham Shivaikum? Would we do that? If you had all the wealth in the world, then would you engage your eyes in looking at the deity of Krishna? Would you engage your head in bowing down to Krishna? Would you engage your hands in cleaning the temple? Would you do that? It's very difficult. But Ambarish Maharaj could do it because he was not attached to material opulence. So one devotee initially in my early days in bhakti, they asked the question, how do we know that too much material endeavor is too much in our Krishna consciousness? So one senior devotee replied, it depends on your adhikar. That means you can get a lot of material opulence, but if you start to see that the material opulence is affecting your bhakti, then that's your limit. You have to stop there. But different devotees can handle different amounts of material opulence. They can handle different amounts of the influence of the material energy because they can use it all in Krishna's service. So yes, it's Krishna's mercy. It's also your advancement in bhakti and how much virakti you have in Krishna consciousness. It's generally said that devotees of Lord Vishnu are poor and devotees of Lord Shiva, devotees of demigods are very rich. That's because the demigods freely offer material opulence unto their followers. Whereas Lord Vishnu, he doesn't freely offer material opulence to his devotees. He first checks their adhikar because he doesn't want them to go astray by him awarding material opulence. But he will award unlimited material opulence, even more than the demigods, if he sees that the devotee is qualified. As in Dhruva Maharaj's case. Anyways, last question. Yeah, I think Srila Prabhupada is saying that because we should not aspire after the same thing. Dhruva Maharaj is exceptional, so he was practicing bhakti with material desires in mind, so then let me follow in his footsteps, and I should also do the same. Well, just like Yudhishthira Maharaj, why did Krishna appoint Yudhishthira Maharaj on the throne? Because he was qualified and he wanted a devotee to rule the citizens, right? So Dhruva Maharaj was a qualified king, a qualified Kshatriya, so Krishna wants his devotees to take ownership and to assist the praja in becoming Krishna conscious as well. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure, but my understanding would be that Govardhan Hill provides the Brajabasis with whatever they require, right? Whether it's minerals, fruits, water, flowers, everything. So Govardhan Hill, by his mercy, provides a very stable and peaceful life for the Brajabasis to engage themselves in Krishna service. That's my understanding. I'm not sure how exactly. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.